The Terminator is a 1984 American science fiction action film directed by James Cameron, written by Cameron and the film's producer Gale Anne Hurd, and starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Biehn, Linda Hamilton and Paul Winfield. It was filmed in Los Angeles, produced by Hemdale Film Corporation and distributed by Orion Pictures. Schwarzenegger plays the Terminator, a cyborg assassin sent back in time from the year 2029 to 1984 to kill Sarah Connor, played by Hamilton. Biehn plays Kyle Reese, a soldier from the future sent back in time to protect Sarah. Though not expected to be either a commercial or critical success, The Terminator topped the American box office for 2 weeks and helped launch the film career of Cameron and solidified that of Schwarzenegger. 3 sequels have been produced: Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, and Terminator Salvation, as well as a television series, Terminator, The Sarah Connor Chronicles. A reboot of the series, Terminator, Genesis, is scheduled for release in 2015. In 2008, The Terminator was selected by the Library of Congress for preservation in the American National Film Registry, being deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Plot: On May 12, 1984, 2 beings from the year 2029 arrive. One is a Terminator T-800 Model 101, a cyborg assassin programmed to kill a Los Angeles woman named Sarah Connor. The other is Kyle Reese, a human resistance fighter sent to protect her. After the Terminator kills 2 other women named Sarah Connor listed in the telephone directory, it eventually tracks down its target to a nightclub. Kyle shows up and saves Sarah from the Terminator's attack and the 2 make an escape. Kyle explains that in the near future, an artificial intelligence defense network called Skynet will become self-aware and initiate a nuclear holocaust of mankind, also explaining that he himself was born after it. Sarah's yet unborn son John will rally the survivors and lead a resistance movement against Skynet and its army of machines. With resistance on the verge of victory, Skynet has sent a Terminator back in time to kill Sarah before John is born, as a last-ditch effort to avert the formation of the resistance. The Terminator is an efficient killing machine with a powerful metal endoskeleton, but with an external layer of living tissue that makes it resemble a human being. Kyle and Sarah are again attacked by the Terminator, leading to a car chase. Their cars eventually crash and break down. Kyle and Sarah are caught by the police and the Terminator disappears. Kyle is questioned by criminal psychologist Dr. Silberman, who concludes that he is paranoid and delusional. Sarah is also questioned by Lieutenant Traxler and Detective Vukovich about the events that happened. The Terminator shows up and attacks the police station, killing many police officers including Traxler and Vukovich in its attempt to locate Sarah. However, Sarah and Kyle manage to escape and seek refuge in a motel. Kyle confesses that he has long been in love with Sarah, having been given a photograph of her by her son John so that he could find her. Sarah reciprocates Kyle's feelings and they have sex. The Terminator tracks them to the motel and Kyle and Sarah escape in a pickup truck. In the ensuing chase, Kyle throws pipe bombs at the Terminator in an effort to destroy it. Kyle is wounded by the Terminator's gunfire. Sarah manages to knock the Terminator off its motorbike but subsequently loses control of the pickup truck and it flips over. As the Terminator gets up, it is struck by a gasoline tank truck, dragging it a short distance. The Terminator hijacks the truck and resumes the chase. Kyle slides a pipe bomb onto the truck's fuel trailer, causing a massive explosion. The Terminator emerges from the burning truck and collapses. Kyle and Sarah embrace one another. The Terminator, with its flesh coating burned away, continues to pursue them into a factory. Kyle faces the Terminator by hitting it several times with a metal pipe, but it knocks him down. Though dazed, he jams his final pipe bomb into its abdomen, causing an explosion which severely damages it. The explosion kills Kyle and injures Sarah. Still partially functional, the Terminator resumes its attempt to kill Sarah. She leads it into a hydraulic press and crashes it, causing it to deactivate. Sarah is later taken out of the factory by an ambulance as Kyle's body is taken away and buried. Several months later, A pregnant Sarah is traveling through Mexico. Along the way she records audio tapes which she intends to pass on to her unborn son, John. She debates whether to tell him that Kyle is his father. While stopping at a gas station, a boy takes a photograph of her which he purchases. It is revealed to be the photograph that John will later give Kyle. She then drives on towards approaching storm clouds. Cast: Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, a cyborg disguised as a human being sent back in time to assassinate Sarah Connor. Schwarzenegger speaks only 18 lines in the film, and less than 100 words. James Cameron said that somehow, even his Austrian accent worked. It had a strange synthesized quality, like they hadn't gotten the voice thing quite worked out. Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor, the Terminator's target, who was soon to be the mother of the future resistance leader John Connor. Michael Biehn as Kyle Reese, a human resistance fighter sent back in time to protect Sarah. Paul Winfield as Ed Traxler, a police lieutenant who questions Sarah. Lance Henriksen as Hal Vukovich, a police detective who questions Sarah. Earl Boen as Dr. Silberman, a criminal psychologist. Additional actors included Bess Motter as Ginger Ventura. Rick Risovich as Matt Buchanan. Dick Miller as the gun shop clerk. Shaun Shipps as Nancy. Bruce M. Kerner as the desk sergeant. Schwarzenegger's friend and workout partner, professional bodybuilder Franco Columbu as a Terminator in 2029. And Bill Paxton, Brad Riordan, and Brian Thompson as punks who are confronted by the Terminator. Marianne Mullaleel as one of the other women with the name Sarah Connor, who was shot by the Terminator. Production, development, in Rome, during the release of Piranha 2, the Spawning director James Cameron grew ill and had a dream about a metallic torso dragging itself from an explosion while holding kitchen knives. When Cameron returned to Pomona, California, he stayed at Randolph Frakes' home where he wrote a draft for the Terminator. Cameron later stated that his influences while writing the script were 1950s science fiction films and episodes of The Outer Limits as well as contemporary films including The Driver and The Road Warrior. To translate the draft into a script, Cameron enlisted his friend Bill Wisher, who had a similar approach to storytelling. Cameron gave Wisher the early scenes involving Sarah Connor and the police department scenes to write. As Wisher lived far away from Cameron, the two communicated script ideas by recording tapes of what they wrote by telephone. Cameron's agent hated the idea for the Terminator and told him to work on something else. After this, Cameron fired his agent. The initial outline of the script involved two Terminators sent to the past. The first was similar to the Terminator in the film, while the second was a liquid metal cyborg that could not be destroyed with conventional weaponry. Cameron could not think of a good way to depict this robot, stating that he was seeing things in his head that couldn't be done with existing technology. The story of the cyborgs in the film was cut down to a single robot idea. The liquid metal Terminator would be revisited with the T-1000 character in the 1991 sequel Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Gale Anne Hurd, who had worked at New World Pictures as Roger Corman's assistant, showed interest in the film project. Cameron sold the rights for the Terminator to Hurd for $1 with the promise that she would produce it only if Cameron was to direct it. As a producer, Hurd had suggested edits to the script and took a screenwriting credit in the film. Cameron has stated that Hurd did no actual writing at all. Cameron and Hurd had friends who worked with Roger Corman previously and who were now working at Orion Pictures, part of MGM. Orion agreed to distribute the film if Cameron could get financial backing elsewhere. The script was picked up by John Daly at Hemdale Pictures. Cameron wanted his pitch for Daly to finalize the deal and had his friend Lance Henriksen show up to the meeting early dressed and acting like the Terminator. Henriksen showed up at the office kicking open the door wearing a leather jacket and had gold foil smothered on his teeth and fake cuts on his face and then sat in a chair. Cameron arrived shortly after, which relieved the staff from Henriksen's act. Daly was impressed by the screenplay and Cameron's sketches and passion for the film. In late 1982 Daly agreed to back the film with help from HBO and Orion. The Terminator was originally budgeted at $4 million and later raised to $6.5 million. Pre-production. One of Cameron's first tasks was to find someone to play Kyle Reese. Orion wanted a star whose popularity was rising in the United States but who also would have foreign appeal. Orion's co-founder Mike Medavoy had met Arnold Schwarzenegger and sent his agent the script for the Terminator. Cameron was dubious about casting Schwarzenegger as Reese as he felt he would need someone even bigger to play the Terminator. The studio had suggested O.J. Simpson for the role of the Terminator, but Cameron did not feel that Simpson would be believable as a killer. Cameron still agreed to meet with Schwarzenegger about the film and devised a plan to avoid casting him. Cameron planned to pick a fight with him and return to Hemdale and find him unfit for the role. Upon meeting with Schwarzenegger, Cameron was entertained by Schwarzenegger, who would talk about how the villain should be played. Cameron began sketching his face on a notepad and asked Schwarzenegger to stop talking and remain still. After the meeting, Cameron returned to Daly saying Schwarzenegger would not play Reese but that he'd make a hell of a Terminator. Schwarzenegger was not as excited by the film. During an interview on the set of Conan the Barbarian, an interviewer asked him about a pair of shoes he had. Schwarzenegger responded, "Oh, some shit movie I'm doing, take a couple weeks." In preparation for the role, Schwarzenegger spent 3 months training with weapons to be able to use them and feel comfortable around them. For the role of Reese, various other suggestions were made for the role including rock musician Sting. Cameron chose Michael Biehn for the role. Biehn was originally skeptical about the part, feeling that the film was silly. After meeting with Cameron, Biehn stated his feelings about the project changed. Hurd stated that almost everyone else who came in from the audition was so tough that you just never believed that there was gonna be this human connection between Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese. They have very little time to fall in love. A lot of people came in and just could not pull it off. In the first few pages of the script, the character of Sarah Connor is written as 19, small and delicate features. Pretty in a flawed, accessible way. She doesn't stop the party when she walks in, but you'd like to get to know her. Her vulnerable quality masks a strength even she doesn't know exists. For the role, Cameron chose Linda Hamilton, who had just finished filming Children of the Corn. Rosanna Arquette had previously auditioned. Cameron found a role for Lance Henriksen as Detective Hal Vukovich, as Henriksen had been essential to finding finances for the film. For the special effects shots in the film, Cameron wanted Dick Smith, who had previously worked on The Godfather and Taxi Driver. Smith did not take Cameron's offer and suggested his friend Stan Winston for the job. Production: filming for The Terminator was set to begin in early 1983 in Toronto. Production was halted when producer Dino De Laurentiis applied an option in Schwarzenegger's contract that would make him unavailable for 9 months while he was filming Conan the Destroyer. During the waiting period, Cameron was contracted to write the script for Rambo: First Blood Part 2. He also used this time to refine parts of the Terminator's script and meet with producers David Gilmour and Walter Hill to discuss a sequel to Alien. There was limited interference from Orion Pictures. 2 suggestions Orion put forward included the addition of a canine cyborg for Reese, which Cameron turned down, and the second was to strengthen the love interest between Sarah and Reese, which Cameron accepted. On creating the Terminator's look, Winston and Cameron passed their sketches back and forth. They eventually decided on a design that was nearly identical to the original one Cameron drew in Rome. Winston had a team of 7 artists work for 6 months to create a puppet of the Terminator. It was first molded in clay, then plaster reinforced with steel ribbing. These pieces were then sanded, painted and then chrome-plated. Winston sculpted a reproduction of Schwarzenegger's face in several poses out of silicone, clay and plaster. Both the sequences in 2029 and stop-motion scenes in the film were developed by Fantasy II, a special effects company headed by Gene Warren Jr. A stop-motion model is used in several scenes in the film involving the skeletal frame. Cameron wanted to convince the audience that the model of the structure was capable of doing what they saw Schwarzenegger doing. To allow this, a scene was filmed of Schwarzenegger injured and limping away. This limp made it easier for the model to imitate Schwarzenegger. One of the guns seen in the film and on the film's poster was an AMT hardball alongside modified by Ed Reynolds from Surefire to include a laser sight. Both non-functioning and functioning versions of the prop were created. At the time the movie was made, diode lasers were not available. Because of the high power requirement, the helium neon laser and the sight used an external power supply that Arnold Schwarzenegger had to activate manually. Reynolds states that his only compensation for the project was promotional material for the film. In March 1984, the film began production in Los Angeles. Cameron felt that with Schwarzenegger on the set, the style of the film changed, explaining that the movie took on a larger-than-life sheen. I just found myself on the set doing things I didn't think I would do. Scenes that were just purely horrific that just couldn't be, because now they were too flamboyant. Most of the Terminator's action scenes were filmed at night, which led to tight filming schedules before sunrise. A week before filming started, Linda Hamilton sprained her ankle, leading to a production change whereby the scenes in which Hamilton needed to run occurred as late as the filming schedule allowed. Hamilton's ankle was taped every day and she spent most of the film production in pain. Schwarzenegger tried to have the iconic "I'll be back" line changed because of language barriers. In an October 1, 2012 interview on Good Morning America, he revealed that he had difficulty pronouncing the word "I'll" properly. The actor also felt that his robotic character wouldn't speak in contractions and felt that the Terminator would be more declarative. Schwarzenegger asked James Cameron if he could change the line to, "I will be back," but Cameron refused. As a result, Schwarzenegger worked to say the line as written the best he could. He would later say the line in numerous subsequent films throughout his career. Post-production: after production finished on the Terminator, some post-production shots were needed. These included scenes showing the Terminator outside Sarah Connor's apartment, Reese being zipped into a body bag, and the Terminator's head being crushed in a press. A film's soundtrack was synthesizer music composed by Brad Fiedel. Fiedel described the film's music as being about a mechanical man and his heartbeat. Almost all the music in the film was performed live. The Terminator's theme is played over the opening credits and is played in various points in the film in sped-up versions, a slowed-down version when Reese dies, and a piano version during the love scene. Fiedel created music for when Reese and Connor escape from the police station that would be appropriate for a heroic moment. Cameron turned down this theme, as he believed it would lose the audience's excitement. The soundtrack to the film was released in 1984. Release: Orion Pictures did not have faith in the Terminator performing well at the box office and feared a negative critical reception. At an early screening of the film, the actor's agents insisted to the producers that the film should be screened for critics. Orion only held one press screening for the film. The film was premiered on October 26, 1984. On its opening week, The Terminator played at 1,005 theaters and grossed $4.0 million, making it number one in the box office. The film remained at number one in its second week. It lost its number one spot in the third week to "Oh, God! You Devil!" Cameron noted that The Terminator was a hit relative to its market, which is between the summer and the Christmas blockbusters. But it's better to be a big fish in a small pond than the other way around. Writer Harlan Ellison stated that he loved the movie, was just blown away by it, but believed that the screenplay was based on an episode of The Outer Limits he had written, titled Soldier. Orion gave Ellison an undisclosed amount of money and an acknowledgement credit in later prints of the film. Some accounts of the settlement state that Demon with a Glass Hand, another Outer Limits episode written by Ellison, was also claimed to have been plagiarized by the film, but Ellison has explicitly stated that The Terminator was a rip-off of Soldier rather than Demon with a Glass Hand. Cameron was against Orion's decision and was told that if he did not agree with the settlement, they would have Cameron pay for any damages if Orion lost Ellison's suit. Cameron replied that he had no choice but to agree with the settlement. "Of course there was a gag order as well, so I couldn't tell this story, but now I frankly don't care. It's the truth. Harlan Ellison is a parasite who can kiss my ass." Marketing. Around and shortly after The Terminator's release in theaters, a number of merchandise items and media were released and sold to coincide with the film. Sean Hudson wrote a novelization of the film which was published on February 21, 1985. In September 1988, Now Comics released a comic based on the film. Dark Horse Comics published a comic in 1990 that took place 39 years after the film. Several video games based on the Terminator were released between 1991 and 1993 for various Nintendo and Sega systems. A soundtrack to the film was released in 1984 which included the score by Brad Fiedel and the pop and rock songs used in the club scenes. Home video. The Terminator was released on VHS and Betamax in 1985. The film performed well financially on its initial release. The Terminator premiered at number 35 on the top video cassette rentals and number 20 on top video cassette sales charts. In its second week, The Terminator reached number 4 on the top video cassette rentals and number 12 on top video cassette sales charts. In March 1995, The Terminator was released as a letterboxed edition on Laserdisc. A film premiered through Image Entertainment on DVD, on September 3, 1997. IGN referred to this DVD as pretty bare bones. Released with just a mono soundtrack and a kind of poor transfer. Through their acquisition of Polygram Filmed Entertainment's pre-1996 film library catalog, MGM released a special edition of the film on October 2, 2001, which included documentaries, the script, and advertisements for the film. On January 23, 2001, a Hong Kong VCD edition was released online. On June 20, 2006, the film was released on Blu-ray through Sony in the United States. In late 2012, the film was re-released on Blu-ray, this time with a transfer by MGM, which features improved sharpness compared to Sony's 2006 Blu-ray, and revised color grading, as well as expanded extra material, such as deleted scenes and a making-of feature. Reception and legacy. Positive reviews of The Terminator focused on the action scenes and rapid pacing. Variety praised the film, calling it a blazing, cinematic comic book, full of virtuoso movie-making, terrific momentum, solid performances and a compelling story. Schwarzenegger is perfectly cast in a machine-like portrayal that requires only a few lines of dialogue. Richard Corliss of Time magazine said that the film has plenty of tech-noir savvy to keep infidels and action fans satisfied. Time placed The Terminator on its 10 best list for 1984. The Los Angeles Times called the film a crackling thriller full of all sorts of gory treats. Loaded with fuel-injected chase scenes, clever special effects and a sly humor. The Milwaukee Journal gave the film 3 stars, calling it the most chilling science fiction thriller since Alien. A review in Orange Coast magazine stated that the distinguishing virtue of The Terminator is its relentless tension. Right from the start it's all action and violence with no time taken to set up the story. It's like a streamlined Dirty Harry movie, no exposition at all. Just guns, guns and more guns. In the May 1985 issue of Cinefantastique it was referred to as a film that manages to be both derivative and original at the same time. Not since The Road Warrior has the genre exhibited so much exuberant carnage, and an example of science fiction horror at its best. Cameron's no-nonsense approach will make him a sought-after commodity. In the United Kingdom the Monthly Film Bulletin praised the film's script, special effects, design and Schwarzenegger's performance. Other reviews focused on the film's level of violence and storytelling quality. The New York Times opined that the film was a B-movie with flair. Much of it has suspense and personality, and only the obligatory mayhem becomes dull. There is far too much of the latter, in the form of car chases, messy shootouts and Mr. Schwarzenegger slamming brutally into anything that gets in his way. The Pittsburgh Press wrote a negative review, calling the film just another of the films drenched in artsy ugliness like Streets of Fire and Blade Runner. The Chicago Tribune gave the film 2 stars, adding that at times it's horrifyingly violent and suspenseful, at others it giggles at itself. This schizoid style actually helps, providing a little humor just when the sci-fi plot turns too sluggish or the dialogue too hokey. The Newhouse News Service called the film a lurid, violent, pretentious piece of claptrap. The film won 3 Saturn Awards for Best Science Fiction Film, Best Makeup and Best Writing. In 1991, Richard Schickel of Entertainment Weekly reviewed the film, giving it an A rating, writing that, "What originally seemed a somewhat inflated, if generous and energetic, big picture, now seems quite a good little film," and called it one of the most original movies of the 1980s and seems likely to remain one of the best sci-fi films ever made. Film 4 gave the film 5 stars, calling it the sci-fi action thriller that launched the careers of James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger into the stratosphere. Still endlessly entertaining. TV Guide gave the film 4 stars, referring to it as an amazingly effective picture that becomes doubly impressive when one considers its small budget. For our money, this film is far superior to its mega-grossing mega-budgeted sequel. Empire gave the film 5 stars, calling it as chillingly efficient in exacting thrills from its audience as its titular character is in executing its targets. The film database Allmovie gave the film 5 stars, saying that it established James Cameron as a master of action, special effects, and quasi-mythic narrative intrigue, while turning Arnold Schwarzenegger into the hard-body star of the 1980s. Halliwell's Film Guide described the film as slick, rather nasty but undeniably compelling comic book adventures. The review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes reported a 100% approval rating with an average rating of 8.7/10 based on 50 reviews. The website's consensus reads, "With its impressive action sequences, taut economic direction, and relentlessly fast pace, it's clear why the Terminator continues to be an influence on sci-fi and action flicks." The film also holds a score of 84/100 on review aggregator website Metacritic. The Terminator has received recognition from the American Film Institute. The film ranked 42nd on AFI's 100 Years. 100 Thrills, a list of America's most heart-pounding films. The character of the Terminator was selected as the 22nd greatest movie villain on AFI's 100 Years. 100 Heroes and Villains. Arnold's catchphrase "I'll be back" was voted the 37th greatest movie quote by the AFI. In 2005, Total Film named The Terminator the 72nd best film ever made. In 2008, Empire magazine selected The Terminator as one of the 500 greatest movies of all time. Empire also placed the T-814th on their list of the 100 greatest movie characters. In 2008, The Terminator was deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress and selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry. Themes: Darian Leader considers The Terminator as an example of how the cinema has dealt with the problem of masculinity, stating that it illustrates that to be a man requires more than having the body of a man, and that something symbolic that is not ultimately human must be added. He sees The Terminator as similar to the $6 Million Man and RoboCop in this respect. Soundtrack, music. The music of the first 6 tracks of the album is a synthesizer-based film score by Brad Fiedel. The Terminator theme has been described as having a deceptively simple melody line and haunting synthesizer music. It is in a time signature of 13/16, which came about as Fiedel experimented with a rhythm track on his music equipment. It was initially an accident, but Fiedel found that he liked the herky-jerky propulsiveness. The track Love Scene is a softer piano-based version of the main theme that was described as bittersweet. Factory Chase features an electric violin played by Ross Levinson. The second half of the soundtrack is performed by various artists and has been described as synthesizer-based and dance-oriented pop rock. The tracks by Tanae Kane and T-Angels consists are performed in part by Tanae Kane. The songs by Tanae Kane and T-Angels contain hard rock rhythm guitar. Pictures of You has an emphasis on its synthesizer and differs from Jay Ferguson's hit songs. Intimacy has been described as latter-day new wave and primitive, early techno. Release: the soundtrack album was originally released through Enigma Records. It was followed by a CD and cassette reissue on July 1, 1991 through DCC Compact Classics. A remastered edition entitled The Definitive Edition was released on August 22, 1995 through Adel AG. This edition contained a 73-minute running time and included a bonus track, the Judgment Day remix of theme from the Terminator. The liner notes of the album contained extensive annotations for each track. Reception. Online music database AllMusic praised the score of the film, referring to it as underrated highlight of the Terminator and referred to it as a marvelous synthesizer score. The review stated that the second half of the album featuring the pop songs was generic. The review praised the definitive edition version of the album, which featured the entire film score, opining that it comprises some of the best science fiction-oriented film music of recent decades. Track listing, personnel, Brad Fiedel All instrumentation, production, Ross Levison electric violin, Emil Robertson music editing, Robert Randalls music post-production, Bill Wolford digital editing, remixing, see also. Arnold Schwarzenegger filmography, list of action films of the 1980s, list of American films of 1984, list of science fiction films of the 1980s, references, footnotes. Bibliography. External links, The Terminator at AllMovie, The Terminator at the Internet Movie Database, The Terminator at Rotten Tomatoes, The Terminator at Metacritic, The Terminator at Box Office Mojo, The Terminator at siskelanddebit.org,